Who do you guys feel like is that perfect flex from each team? Whether it's pulling out an AR, an SMG, having to rotate and play that position of a main AR if your main AR is dead, or having to push into a hard point with an SMG that they picked up. That's what we're going to be discussing today. So in this video, we're going to go through the flex for each and every team in the CDL, and we're going to put them into tier ranks. If you haven't seen the videos before this, we've done SMG duos, we have done main ARs, we have not done individual SMGs yet. That is on the way, but we're going to put them into an S tier, an A tier, a B tier, and a C tier. I didn't want to do D and F because I think all of these guys are really good. But without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's bring up our graphic. This is what we're working with here. And on the right-hand side, you can see a card for each and every one of the players we're going to be talking about today. I prefer to go in reverse alphabetical order, start with Toronto and just go all the way down towards the bottom. That leaves us with teams like Florida and Dallas and Chicago and Atlanta towards the end. So to get things kicked off, we're going to start here with Cammy. We're going to pull him out, and let's talk about Cammy for a little bit. I feel like Cammy has played a huge role in the turnaround for the Toronto Ultra as of late, as we've gotten into basically the end of stage 3 and the beginning of stage 4. They haven't quite been as on fire as they were in stage 2, but when it comes to Cammy, where he really shines is in hardpoint. He's got some of the highest kills per 10 minutes and damage per 10 minutes. He is just playing super aggressive, and he is constantly finding gun battles around the map. He also has a really high overall KD in S&D, and his first blood percentage is almost up to 15%, which when you look at some of these other flex, we have S&D first blood percentages in the 7 or 8% per round. So pretty high all around. When it comes to Cammy, I do feel like there are some on this list that are going to be a little bit better than him, but absolutely solid flex. I would take him on my team in a heartbeat. So to kick things off here, I think I'm going to put him up here in this A tier. We'll see if he ends up getting turned around, moved around or not. Maybe there's some that are better. Maybe there are some that are worse and he needs to be moved up. We'll see how things go. But I feel like for right now, the A tier is a pretty comfortable position for him, which brings us to our next flex, which is Gunless. And I feel like a lot of people would agree that this hasn't been the best title for Gunless so far this year. His hardpoint numbers are okay, 0.97 overall KD. He's doing a decent amount of damage and has a decent amount of kills per 10 minutes, but where he's really struggling is in S&D. He has the third lowest overall S&D KD when it comes to the players on this list, and his first blood percentage is 8.8%, which puts him at second of everybody, second lowest of everybody on this list. He's just really not getting it done. His control numbers are okay, but across the board, I think we've seen moments where he has absolutely shined. And right now, that just isn't the case, especially as we've gone on throughout the year. He was best towards the latter stages of stage 1 and a little bit towards the beginning of stage 2. But as of late, Seattle has really fallen off. I think they've lost 10 or 11 games in a row. So just because of where things are at, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put Gunless down in the C category, mainly just because the last couple stages have not been great, and others on this list are absolutely shredding. So we'll put Gunless down in the C tier, which brings us next to Temp, somebody that started with LA Thieves, has moved around a little bit, played some challengers. Now he's on Paris, and I will say, I think that they might have found something there at Paris. Not that they're going to surprise everybody and be a top 5 or 6 team, but they're definitely playing better than they were before, especially in Search and Destroy, where they've taken like standoff against teams like Minnesota. And before that, the very first time that we saw standoff S&D, they actually won that in dominant fashion against the Atlanta FaZe. But when we're looking here at Temp, you kind of have to look at all of the game modes, and he's been playing pretty well, at least decent when it comes to hardpoint, but he's got the second lowest overall KD in S&D. His S&D first blood percentage is one of the bottom 3 or 4. His control numbers are decent, but he's really not getting into a ton of engagements, and I think that we'll see that increase as the year goes on. Hopefully those guys can continue to play well and build some chemistry, but for right now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put Temp down here with Gunless in the C tier. Again, I don't expect him to stay there. I think he's a really good player. He's part of what has turned things around a little bit for Paris. We'll just see if he can continue to play at that level and get better as time goes on. Next on the list, we got Mac from the New York Subliners. And for me, Mac is a little bit of a tricky one, and you also have to keep in mind that there are some really good players on this list. So let's not forget, and if we end up putting people where you might not disagree, let's just wait and see where some of these guys end up. But when it comes to Mac, his S&D first blood percentage is the biggest thing that sticks out to me. He's right there at 14% on the year, and that's really high for a flex. Sometimes you're a little bit taken by surprise when you see SMGs in that 14-15% range, and he's there as a flex. If you look at his hardpoint KD, it's really not the best, 0.97, but he is doing a pretty decent amount of damage right there at 4,100 damage per 10 minutes. And for me, what really is propelling New York as of late has been their SMG duo, and Glaciers been playing really well, and I think that Mac is doing his job, and I don't think there's any shame in that, in just saying Mac is playing really well, he's doing his job, he's playing his part, and he's an integral piece to what New York has been doing as of late. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, and I think for right now, we'll put Mac in the B tier. We'll see if we move him around a little bit, but for right now, I'm comfortable putting him there in B. Next on the list, we got Priesta from the Minnesota Rocker. And I feel like Priesta is very similar to what Mac has been doing. I think when it comes to S&D, that is by far Priesta's best game mode at 1.02 overall KD with a 15.5 first blood percentage. That puts him as second highest in this entire flex category when it comes to first blood percentage. If you go throughout now, when it comes to control, when it comes to hardpoint, his numbers maybe aren't quite as good as Max, but again, I think that team is propelled by what Standy has been doing, how Attach has been complementing Standy, and as of late, bringing Major Maniac back into the fold. They look much better than they did before. So with that, again, we'll see where he ends up. Right now, it's kind of undecided for me. Do you put Priesta in the A or the B tier? I think he could go either way. So what we'll do is we'll just put him right here in the middle, and we'll see where he ends up once we get some more of these guys over here into our list. Next on the list is Kenny, and this is a little bit different because with the recent LA Thieves roster changes, Kenny, who was running the main AR, is going to be going back to the flex because Huke is now in the starting lineup, and so is Slasher. So that means Slasher will be running the main AR. Kenny will be back to that flex position, and when you put him there, this is a tough one because there are some dudes that are shredding up there at S tier, and I think Kenny could be very close to them. So if we look at his numbers overall, where Kenny shines, he has the second highest hardpoint kill death ratio amongst the flex positions in this list at 1.04. Does a ton of kills per 10 minutes. He's at 24 kills per 10 minutes, which leads this list, and his damage numbers, 4,700 damage per 10 minutes, also leads this list. Now, where things fall off a little bit, his control numbers are kind of average, right in the middle of the road. His SND overall KD is 1.03, which again, there are many people in this list that are better than him, but I think you put him in hardpoint, then he shines, no doubt about it. You look at SND and control, LA Thieves are looking to be led by some of the other players on his roster. So I think we're going to go ahead, and this is a difficult one. I think you could put between S and A tier here. Again, I'm going to leave it at undecided, and we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the next player on this list, which is Money Cheen. And when we talk about Cheen, I think he's made a big difference in LAG when it comes to their vibe, especially right off the rip when they were able to get some of those impressive victories that they got right when he came on board. But with that said, his numbers really just aren't stellar, especially when you compare him to some of the other players on this list. His S&D first blood percentage is 8.9%. That's almost lowest in this group. His overall control KD is one of the lowest in this group. I do think his S&D KD overall is really high, 1.18. That's actually the highest on this list. But the fact that he's not getting first bloods mainly means that he's playing S&D rounds very smart. He's just not putting his team in those 4v3 scenarios, which can end up leading to winning rounds and stuff like that. But what he's doing, he's playing really well in S&D, but hardpoint control, it's not really there. And because the talent is so high in the league, right now I'm going to take Cheen, and I think I'm going to put him down here in the B tier, and we'll see where he ends up from there. Let's go ahead. Let's move Priesta over here to this undecided column, and we'll go from there. Next on our list is PaulX from the London Royal Ravens. And when it comes to PaulX, I think PaulX has made a big reason, has been a big part of why London has been playing much better as of late. You look at their last 5 or 6 matches, they are competing against some of the best teams in the league. They are getting impressive victories over teams right in the middle of the pack, like the Minnesota Rocker. When you look at his stats, he plays really well in S&D, 1.14 overall KD in S&D, and 15% first blood percentage. He's got one of the highest control kills per 10 minutes, got the highest control damage per 10 minutes. I just feel like he has made a huge difference for London when it comes to how they've been playing as of late. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take PaulX, and I'm going to put him in this A category. I really do think he's made a huge change for them overall, and he deserves to be up in that A tier. Let's go ahead. Let's move Kenny over here. Next on our list, we're getting down into those top 4-ish teams in the power rankings, and let's go ahead and let's talk about Awakening. When it comes to Awakening, this guy is absolutely on fire. Hardpoint really hasn't been his best mode, but when you look at S&D, 1.12 overall KD, which is 3rd on this list, 18.3% first blood percentage for a guy that is his team's flex. Most of the time, you're going to see, if you see 16, 17, 18% first blood percentage, you're expecting somebody like a BZ or a really fast SMG to be up there. But that's where Awakening's at, and he's been playing out of his mind. He's got the highest control kills per 10 minutes, 2nd control damage per 10. I just feel like day in, day out, game in, game out, he is somebody that you can rely on. I'm going to take Awakening. I'm going to put him up in the S tier and move on from there. Next on our list, we got Illy, and I'm going to start this off by just saying I feel like I expected a little bit more out of Illy this year. If you look at his hardpoint KD, 0.97, which puts him 2nd to last on this list. You look at his S&D KD, 0.78 for the year, which is dead last when it comes to the players in this flex role on this list. His control kills per 10 minutes. His control KD is 0.89, which is lowest of every player on this list. I just feel like I expected more out of Illy this year, and we're not really getting it. He just hasn't been performing, and I feel like Dallas has been carried by the SMGs on their roster, and Crim has been playing really well. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take Illy, and this might come as a bit of surprise, but we're going to take Illy. We're going to move him down here into this C tier. I think that he can turn it around. He's definitely got the ability to turn it around. He's just not there yet. So that brings us to the 2 that are left. We've got Dashie, and boy, oh boy, when it comes to Dashie, the kid has been shredding this year. He's got the highest hardpoint KD overall. He's got the second highest damage per 10 minutes. When it comes to SND KD, he's got the second highest SND KD. When it comes to control, he's got the second highest control KD. He has been extremely impactful in every single game mode, and he has been one of the steadiest players on that Optic roster. You really can't say that for Formal, especially how he played as of late against Atlanta. Envoy has had ups and downs. Scump has also been extremely consistent, but when you need somebody to just go out and play the way that they're capable of playing, that's what you've been getting out of Dashie. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to put him up here in the S tier. I really do think he's one of the top 3 flex in our game, which brings us to, last but not least, Celium. And I think everybody can agree that when it comes to Celium, he's going to be above Kenny and Priesta. So Kenny and Priesta, we can go ahead, we can move down. We can finish the video by talking about where they're at in terms of A and B, but it's no doubt about it, Celium is going up here to S tier. I feel like Celium is, by and large, one of, if not the best flex in the game. I think Dashie and Awakening can give him a run for his money when it comes to just absolute slaying power, but when you need somebody to clutch up, when you need the intangibles, when you need somebody to really make a difference with an SMG in his hands, I think, again, Celium is much better with a sub in his hands than Dashie and Awakening is. He's just so flexible. He can do so many things on the map for you. We're not even talking about his stats. He's got the highest overall control KD. He's got middle of the pack SND KD, but he's got the highest overall hardpoint KD. He's right there in third when it comes to hardpoint kills per 10 minutes, damage per 10 minutes. I mean, this guy can do it all, and if you need him to run a sub, he can do it. You need him to run an AR, he can shred. You need him to anchor with that AR if Arcides dies. I mean, he can just do absolutely everything, and right now I think that Celium is probably my #1 when it comes to overall flex in the league, but he's definitely up there in the top 3, which brings us into the final 2 spots here. We've talked about Kenny, we've talked about Priesta. I just feel like right now Kenny is a bit more consistent, even though his numbers are good. They're not flying off the charts. I think if you compare both of their numbers across the board, I think when it comes to S&D, Priesta's definitely the better player, but if you compare their hardpoint and their control numbers, Kenny's got it by a pretty large margin. So we'll see. I'm actually excited. I think he did a really good job at playing that main AR role, but there's no doubt about it, he's best when he's running that flex position. So I'm excited to see him pick up his pace, speed up a little bit, maybe use an SMG when it comes to certain maps. I'm really excited to see what Kenny does now that he's got Slasher behind him and he can return to the role that he's most comfortable with. So there you have it. That's the list that I've got for flex. Down in the comments below, do you agree with these guys? Do you disagree? Do you think Max should be higher? I think just at first glance, some of you would probably replace PaulX and Mac, but when you think about what London's been doing as of late and how PaulX has been playing, he's obviously been one of the biggest reasons why they've had a little bit of a turnaround. Might be a little bit surprised to see Illy and Gunless down towards the bottom, but either way, leave it down in the comments. What do you agree? What do you disagree with? What would you change? I absolutely love the conversation on these videos, so go ahead and let me know. Thank you guys so much. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave a like as it helps out the channel, and with that, enjoy this week's matches. We will see you in the next upload.